Okay, in that case, I'll call the meeting to order. Welcome, say good evening to everybody, and welcome to another exciting meeting of the Charlton Water and Sewer Commission. Today is June 22nd, 2020, and it's 6:30, probably now, 33 p.m. First of all, I would like to welcome Jack Ridlack and Phil Donahue as new members. And we will reorganize as soon as we have a full board. Anybody there to speak for Commissioners Forum, Public Forum, speak now, please.
Dave Cantwell's here.
Okay, that's all we were waiting for, right?
Possibly Jack. So if we want to give Jack a little longer, we can just move on with the regular business.
Okay, well, I don't know who's reading the minutes now. Would that be Russ still? We haven't changed that. We need.
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes as printed from June 1, 2020.
Second the motion.
Okay, is there any discussion on that? We got a motion and a second. Hearing no discussion. All those in favor, please say aye. And of course, identify yourself. It's a roll call vote, so identify yourself as you vote.
Sorry, new to the parliamentary order.
Jennings.
Jennings, aye.
Donahue, aye.
Cantwell, aye.
And my last Gagner, aye. So that would be, is that unanimous?
Yes.
I'm hard here without the pictures to see who voted. And next, we'd like a motion on any of the.
Paul, Jack is on. Jack, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah. Oh.
Great. So Paul, Jack is on.
Why don't we jump right into our reorganization?
Okay.
And
I'd like to make a motion to appoint Russ Jennings as the chairperson.
Okay, do I hear a second on that?
Second.
Okay, and any discussion on it?
When you say second,
no, okay. Just so the new people know, we have three offices. We have chairman, we have vice chairman, and we have clerk. So, while hearing no discussion on Russ being chair, we'll take a vote, please. Roll call.
Cantwell, aye.
Donahue,
Aye.
aye.
Jack Ridlack, aye.
Jennings abstain.
Okay, and Gagner, aye. Next, I'd like to hear a motion on the vice chair.
I'll make a motion we appoint Dave Cantwell, vice chair.
you gotta say the name.
Jennings.
Russell made the motion.
Did I get a second on that?
Second, Donahue.
Okay. Okay, hearing no other discussion, please have the vote.
Jennings, aye.
Donahue,
Ridlack,
aye.
aye.
Cantwell abstain.
Is that it?
You know,
Gagner, aye.
all right, that's it.
Gagner, aye. And now the last thing I will do is entertain a motion to appoint a clerk. We will have no clerk. Somebody's got to.
I'll make a motion we appoint Paul Gagner, clerk.
Do you have a second on that?
I'll second that.
Any
Cantwell.
discussion? If no discussion, then please, let's have a vote on that.
Cantwell, aye.
Donahue, aye.
Ridlack,
Get any
aye.
more? Okay, and Gagner, aye. And if that's we're all done with that, I will turn the meeting over to Russ Jennings.
Well, stepping right into your role as well, Paul, I'll ask you to read the warrants from June 22nd.
I spoke too soon. I don't have them in front of me right now. I'd have to, let me dig through and see if I can find them.
While he's doing that, what about payroll?
As far as motion to appoint a payroll signing authority,
Yes.
Yes, please.
I'll make a motion, we appoint Paul Gagner as payroll signing authority.
I second that. Cantwell.
So just to explain that for Phil and Jack, what that does is it allows us to have Paul stop in on Fridays and sign payroll for the previous week, rather than trying to find three out of the 5 of you to sign off on that so we can submit it.
Sounds like common sense.
Jack, can you hear us?
Yes.
Great. So Russ, you have a motion and a second.
Yes.
Donahue, aye.
Jennings, aye.
Cantwell, aye.
Redlock, aye.
We got one more in there. Well, anyhow, Gagner, I'll be happy to keep that job, I guess. And if you're all set, I do have the warrants ready for you. So I'd like to make a motion to approve the following warrants. WB Mason for office supplies, $111.08. WB Mason for more office supplies, $4.38. Was there an interruption? No? Okay. EJ Prescott for meters, 5 meters, $2,201.13. Veolia for the May monthly services, $40,850.32. McClure Engineering for waterline construction, $2,240. Peter, is that to be reimbursed?
For McClure Engineering, yes, that will be reimbursed.
Okay. EJ Prescott for connectors, $168.12. The Boston Globe for quarterly billing, $359.44. Commonwealth of Massachusetts for conservation registry, $105. McClure Engineering, more waterline construction, $1,410. EJ Prescott for meter seals, $38.58. Interstate Water and Wastewater for repair and upgrade of the COMAG clarifier, $1,920. Yeah. Veolia Headwork Sump Pump, $1,129.58. Veolia for zinc pilot study, $12,502.49. And Diversified Design, is that to be Diversified Sign?
Yes.
For the Buffinville PWS sign, $625 for a total of $63,665.12.
I'll make a motion to accept the warrants.
Is that a second, Dave? Paul made the motion.
Sorry, a second, yes. Open up for discussion.
Is Russ still on?
Oh, I'm back.
You're back? All right.
Yeah.
So there's a motion and a second, Mr. Chair. I just have to see if there's any questions or discussion.
Anything for discussion?
I just want to know, that
Only
zinc
quick-
pilot study, was that something that was approved?
That's what I'm,
To start, yes, it was approved at a lower amount. I believe you guys approved approximately $6,000. And that pretty much got us through the first round of the zinc pilot study. Then Zach came back to us wanting to try the different type of aluminum coagulant to go from like the Epic, the PAC Epic 58 to the PAC Epic 70. And then it just kind of kept going from there, trying to get the better zinc removal. I think John Oatley and Zach are both on if they want to talk about how that price got to where it is.
Yeah, Pete, I can speak a little bit for that. The initial PAC pilot was with the PAC, was for the zinc removal was with PAC and a sulfide chemical, and that right off the bat showed some good promise. We were seeing reductions of zinc and copper. So the decision, with consultation was kind of made to further that pilot and gather more data. As we continued on, we saw an increase in the aluminum. So we kind of continued on further to try and see if we could find a dose where the aluminum level was low enough where it wasn't a concern, but we still had good zinc and copper. And then also included in that amount was a second pilot that was approved. That had the cerium-based coagulant. So it's kind of two things grouped in together. But yeah, the amount is higher than what was voted on, but that the information we were getting was pretty valuable, and that's kind of what we built this response to the EPA for the administrative order on, continuing on the positive results we saw from that, see if that is the best solution we can come up with.
Zach, do we know where that aluminum's coming from?
So the aluminum, the PAC product that we use to get our zinc levels down is actually aluminum based. So it's kind of a fine balancing act where you use enough to get us in compliance for zinc and copper, but don't use too much where you have an aluminum issue. So it was a lot of back and forth, and that's why with the administrative order, the response, we kind of requested a higher limit for the monthly average to give us more wiggle room to explore the doses without being concerned with any compliance in regards to aluminum.
Can I ask a question on source tracing? What's been done as far as trying to figure out the source of the zinc?
Yeah, sure. We have done some testing out in the collection system, mainly some of the larger industries that we have in town. There's some industries that we already have, a sampling schedule with, and from what we found with their results and based on their flow, the amounts might be concentration wise might be higher than a normal household, but when you factor in the amount of flow, it really doesn't add up to a significant amount that would be, anything that we think would take us from, being in compliance to over compliance or non-compliance.
Okay, a follow-up on that. What's the possibility of doing source tracing, meaning that you go to the various zones within the town and take sampling out of the pump systems and see where, or if you can narrow it down to an area of town at least to start off with?
That's doable. Just from experience, though, that's kind of a tricky thing, especially where some stations feed other stations, and if you could tell it's kind of tricky because some residents get water from Southbridge, some get water from wells, and you kind of play a little bit of a guessing game, bouncing around trying to see where the results are, and then you have to take into consideration the flows. And then ultimately, you're still always at the mercy of what's coming into the plant, versus having a solution at the facility that protects you from, whatever comes down the pipeline. It's definitely doable. It's just, it's a lot of sampling, but we can definitely do that if that's the way the commission wants to.
Well,
wants to
I'm
go.
just concerned if we can't get the zinc levels down, that we then have to have a secondary approach that we can provide to the state saying we're going to try to find a source.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just going kind of by experience, and we ran into a similar issue in Sturbridge with zinc, and we spent probably the better portion of 2 years checking pump stations, measuring manholes, just trying to see what areas of town it's coming from, and it's kind of it kind of ended up just being a wild goose chase. Sometimes we would find sources that seemed like they were a contributor, but when you factor in the amount of flow, it really has minimal impact, and it's kind of something where you're getting zinc concentrations throughout the collection system that kind of add up. I don't believe it's
So it sounds like sorry.
Yeah, I don't think it's one specific source, but
Yeah, it sounds like a fallback plan depending on what the state does as far as accepting your proposed plan.
yeah, and like I said, it's you're still always at the mercy of what comes down the pipeline. Whereas if you have a solution at the facility, whether it's a process change, chemical change, to remove it, that protects you from whatever comes into the facility.
Thank you.
Yep.
Zach, can you just tell me real quick why this worked in Sturbridge and not in Charlton?
So it's kind of a different, it's similar equipment, but a different facility. Every facility is a little bit different. I think part of the tough thing in Charlton is. Whoa. Anybody else getting that echo?
Yeah.
Should everybody try to go on while Zach talks?
Is that a little bit better?
Not really.
No.
Is it me?
Maybe whoever's not talking can mute. We have a new person who signed on.
I signed on.
Yeah, you are. You're gonna maybe pick one or the other, Paul.
Okay. Well,
You're on.
I'll X this one out.
Do you want to hang your phone up, Paul? There we go. Paul, can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
All right, that's better. Great.
Yeah.
So where were we? Zach, I think, but one of the other reasons it worked in Sturbridge also is they have a higher aluminum limit, correct? So they could use it more readily.
Yeah, they had a higher aluminum limit. They were a lot closer to the zinc limit. They didn't have to get down very far to get to their compliance. And another thing is they have a larger process, more processes, and they were getting a lot of zinc removal in the process before the COMAG. So they saw a lot of removal in a system that we don't unfortunately have.
Yeah, one
But it's
other thing.
based on the similar process changes in chemical doses and everything.
So one other question, as the water system comes on, for Masonic and some of the others, you're going to have a higher dilution rate too. Do you think that might bring our numbers down?
Yeah, I mean, dilution always helps. I mean, like example in Sturbridge, the most difficult time we had for compliance was when the flows were really low because there was really dry weather. So I assume that's, something that we'll see as well, or we're seeing.
The overlook is already connected to sewer. So even though they're going to connect to public water, that won't necessarily change their flow to sewer.
Okay.
They're already discharging the sewer.
Yeah, but certainly their source water might help, obviously, so.
Be very interesting to
That's-
see also what happens
that's
when the schools reopen, what that does, if there is a sampling then to see if there is the dilution actually makes a difference.
Well, the other thing also is right now, with our flows being lower than normal because there isn't as much traffic on the turnpike in the MTA service area, flows are down. So it's definitely not a normal time at the plant as far as flows go with everything that's happening. So I believe the motion on the floor is to approve the warrant.
Do we have any further discussion? Hearing none, call for a vote.
Campbell, aye.
Donahue, aye.
Gagner, aye.
Redlack, aye.
Jennings, aye. Unanimous. Thank you, Paul, for those warrants. Next, we have scheduled appointments. Viola, who do we have on with us this evening?
All right, so Mr. Chair, you have John Oatley, you have Zach Donahue, and Vincent Masterson, all from Veolia. The first thing that we're going to be talking about, we just had a little bit of a brief discussion about it, is the zinc pilot study that they've been working on to remedy the zinc limit exceedances. And they'll also be talking about the draft order, consent order from the EPA regarding these limit exceedances and what their recommendations are to move forward to try and help solve this problem in the time frame that the EPA has given us. So if we can turn it over to John. And
Yep.
Sure.
Welcome, John.
Thank
Zach.
you, everybody. Look forward to meeting you all in person, whenever that may be.
John,
yes.
John, sorry to interrupt, but can you just give the new members, I guess, your name and title and maybe a quick overview of what you do for Veolia?
Sure, Peter, thanks. Appreciate that. My name is John Oatley. I'm the Vice President of Operations for Veolia. I oversee the water and wastewater treatment facilities in my service area, which include Western Mass, Rhode Island, and Connecticut. The project manager for the Charlton wastewater treatment facility reports directly to me, and both Vinny and I report to Peter on a daily basis. My job is really to provide the level of support from Veolia, the company, in support of Vinny, which then in turn is operating and maintaining the treatment plan on behalf of the Charlton Water and Sewer Commission. I am local. I live about 40 minutes south of Charlton, and am always available either by phone or in person when needed. So getting back to the issue of zinc compliance, as we've discussed, we've spent a pretty fair amount of time and effort to date, building on the information that we gained and gathered with a similar issue in Sturbridge. We developed a pilot program. We instituted it. We had the results. We generated a fairly comprehensive initial report that was submitted, I think about a month ago to the commission. And then subsequent to that, the EPA, we've been in contact with them throughout. Every time we have an exceedance, we're required to notify them. So we've been in contact with them about the efforts that we've been making on behalf of the commission to try to address zinc. And they've been very, very supportive and understanding, but obviously we can't continue to have violations to the NIPD's permit. So they've drafted an administrative order, gave it to us for review and comment to be able to collectively come up with an approach to address the zinc non-compliance. Based on what we've learned to date, our belief at this point is there is a solution to the zinc compliance issue through an enhanced coagulant process using the existing COMAG system. We've seen that we use basically 3 different chemicals. We have existing ferric chloride, which is working in the COMAG process right now to remove phosphorus. But given its chemistry, it's not an effective treatment process for zinc. We then also looked at aluminum, as Zach described pretty well, and we saw very, very good compliance numbers for zinc and copper removal. However, given that our aluminum limit from a monthly average was at a level that we weren't comfortable continuing with a full-scale pilot, we had to basically modify the pilot over time and adjust aluminum dosage to try to stay within the aluminum limit while also trying to reduce to the most effective and efficient level we could with zinc. But unfortunately, despite that effort, we were running up against our monthly average for aluminum. So at times we had to suspend the pilot in order to make sure that we didn't have an additional exceedance for aluminum. At no time were we concerned or did we approach the maximum daily limit for aluminum. But again, we were concerned that we were going to run up against the monthly average, which is significantly less than the daily max. Unlike zinc, where the daily max and the monthly average are the same number, your permit for aluminum has a much higher daily maximum concentration than it does for a monthly average. So building on that, we also tried a new chemical to market for phosphorus removal and metals precipitation, and that's a cerium chloride, which is a rare earth element, which showed great promise as far as jar testing. However, when we tried it as an application to full scale in the plant, we just didn't see the same results that we did on the benchtop. So that trial, although it lasted a period of time, was abandoned, and we've eliminated cerium chloride as a possible candidate for zinc removal. So we crafted a draft response and sent it over to Peter for edit and review, which basically notifies the EPA that pursuant to the administrative order, we'd like to continue with the full-scale pilot with polyaluminum chloride, and within this administrative order period, find the optimum dose of aluminum without worrying about meeting that monthly average. We feel very confident that we could achieve zinc and copper and not exceed the daily max for aluminum, and during that window of time really find out what the true aluminum dose would be needed on a consistent basis to remove zinc, and hopefully that would be below the monthly average. The thing to think about with these coagulants is they don't just get introduced in the plant and then leave the plant. They stay within the sludge and they get recirculated. So you build up a volume of the coagulant throughout the system over time. And once that happens, you can then slowly begin reducing the amount of coagulant you're adding on a daily basis, because you've taken advantage of now having this coagulant recirculating. But again, when you're working up when you're working against a very tight monthly average limit, you have to be really careful about how aggressively you can try to saturate the plant, if you will, with that coagulant dose. The other advantages to aluminum is it's a much cleaner material. Unlike the ferric chloride that's currently being used, which stains the UV system, which is leading to some issues with E. coli at the moment, as well as corroding a lot of the stainless steel and some of the other equipment. Ferric chloride is an acid, basically. It's made by cleaning steel with sulfuric acid. It's actually a byproduct of that process. So it has a very corrosive nature on everything in the plant. Aluminum, on the other hand, is a neutral pH product, which has no corrosive properties, and is a much cleaner chemical to be applied, and therefore doesn't do any harm or fouling to the UV system, which is the final disinfection process for the treatment plant. So for a lot of those reasons, we feel very, very optimistic that if the EPA is willing to grant us the exception during the period of administrative order, which is up until September, we can at least arrive at whether or not polyaluminum chloride is the solution to the zinc. And as Zach said, having the barrier at the plant, I think, is ultimately where we want to be. But I do think, as part of the administrative order within that period of time, we should continue to explore collection system sources to be able to, the best we can, and I think the EPA would agree, identify point sources and do our best to eliminate them at that point. So I don't think it's an either or in the best case scenario. I think it would be a combination of both. However, I think in order to fully and get, be assured that we can achieve zinc compliance within the administrative order, I don't think the collection system approach is going to get us there in time. It may over time, but it won't get us there by September. So that's a long-winded explanation. I hope I didn't talk too fast, and I'll stop now and answer any questions we have up to this point.
So I guess one quick question would be, given the unprecedented times that we're experiencing in the different flows from normal, do you think that now is a good time to work all of this out, and we'll be able to work it out not only for present time but moving forward?
I do. I think as we've heard and we discussed, dilution does help. Obviously, it's not the solution to pollution, if you will, but certainly if we're able to achieve compliance at these very, very low dilution rates, we feel very, very confident that as the zinc loading concentration to the plant goes down due to dilution, the system would only get better. It would, you know what I mean? It would only be enhanced. It wouldn't be the other way around.
Okay.
We're fortunate that we have a concentration limit and not a pounds limit. If it were a pounds limit, then it would be a different story, because in calculating the pounds, you use flow. So even though you may have a slightly less concentration at a higher flow, the pounds would probably be about the same.
Any other questions?
So, Mr. Chair, to start with working on the collection system while Veolia tries to work with the chemical addition, I'm going to try to identify those commercial customers who aren't currently being sampled, see what type of uses they have to make sure that they're not possibly contributing high levels of zinc, and then go from there. And if any are identified that could possibly be contributing to this issue, probably start working with Veolia to do some graph samples of their discharge and do some sampling for the metals that we're having problems with.
What does that physically look like? Who is it, Peter?
Who is what?
Who's actually doing the sampling in the collection?
One of either Vinny or Mike or Drew, who are there every day. They'd go out, pop the manhole, do a grab sample, because they're the ones who do the samples throughout the collection system on a daily basis. So again, I'd work with Vinny, identify what customers may be contributing to this. From there, narrow it down, determine which ones we want to sample, and then Vinny would probably work with Drew and Mike to go take those grab samples from a manhole outside of their building.
We also have a portable composite sampler, which we can put down in manholes as well, so we get a more representative picture of the discharge.
So you can actually do the sampling yourself, and you have some kind of meter that will give you that, or you have to send the samples out to the lab to get results?
We would send those samples out to be tested in our outsourced lab.
Is there
Yeah,
any technology available that you're aware of where you can just test the grab sample on site? Some kind of a portable, device that will do that?
I've explored that in the past, but unfortunately, when you get down to such low concentration levels, it's really hard to be accurate. What you might, if you run the same sample, you might get a variance, which is a big difference between in compliance and not in compliance. So.
Well, I'm just thinking from the standpoint of gross sampling and just then sort of like trying to narrow it down as you're opening up the manholes on a regular basis, just getting a quick shot at it, quick look.
Yeah, unfortunately, metals are kind of a tricky thing, and the best way to do it involves some pretty heavy duty equipment.
Yep.
Yeah, and just for the commission's perspective, this is John Oatley. Each test that you would run about $7. So it's relatively inexpensive to send them out for an analysis, and you get a much better result, like Zach said.
One other question on that: have you tried more than one lab for the sampling to see if you're getting the same results, just to make sure that they're?
Yes, that's an excellent point. We do oftentimes split samples amongst labs. Some labs do use different equipment and different detection limits. So we have done that in the past. We haven't seen much of a variance. Correct me if I'm wrong, Zach. But
yeah, it'd be interesting to take the same sample and send it to 2 or 3 labs and see if you get the same result.
Yeah,
Yep.
we have done that a couple times with different labs as well.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair, I guess that's the update for, I guess, the zinc pilot study that's been done, the consent order from the EPA, and the 2-tiered approach we're going to take through the beginning of September to try and correct the issues that we have for the consent order.
Peter, what's the cost for this?
For the sampling?
Yeah,
for the additional, that would be up, I have to ask John and Zach, what type of additional costs are we looking at to introduce that pack back into the system?
Zach, well, we can certainly look at what we spent to date over the period of time, and it would probably be fairly consistent with that. I think it would be a little bit lower, because again, the goal is to try to drive down the coagulant dose as much as possible once the plant becomes saturated, if you will, with the dose. But if you look at the invoices to date, they cover, what's the period of time, Zach? 3 months?
It's spread out, but it in the amount of time actually running the pilot's probably around that, John.
So you're looking at
a lot of it just depends on how long we run for. I think a tote of pack runs us about $1,000, and depending on what the dose is really how long that will last. The dose and the flow through the treatment plant really have a big impact on how long that lasts.
So are we going to get a price before you guys do the work, or you just give us a bill afterwards?
Well, it's really just direct costs. So what we can do is by the next meeting, which will probably be the point at which we hear from the EPA, we can probably give you a budget.
Okay.
You know what I mean? But we can certainly look at how long we ran and how much it cost previously, and get you a somewhat price per day, if you will. But again, it's just a direct pass-through cost onto the commission, so it'll be what it is, if you will. But we'll get you a budget number by the next meeting. And then what we tried to do in the previous one was kind of set a not to exceed price. But a lot's really going to depend on how the EPA responds to us. If they give us the aluminum, forgiveness as requested, I think a substantial pilot over a period of a month and a half to 2 months will be sufficient. If they don't give us the variance on the daily max, I think we're going to have to regroup as a group and collaborate on what might be the better or the best option going forward. Because again, trying to maintain that low level of aluminum monthly average would require us to go very slow over a longer period of time, and that could get potentially more expensive. So I don't want to say uncertain, but I think depending on which way they require us to go, we'll have a better understanding of what the pilot would look like.
One other
Does that make
question
sense to everyone?
is there a log of sampling to date and amounts at various collection points?
Could you repeat that question? I didn't
Is
quite
there a
understand.
log of collection points and testing to date?
Yes, that's all included in the monthly report. Not the monthly report, but the report that was distributed.
Okay.
There's actually some charts and graphs in there.
Are you Mr. Donahue, are you talking about in the collection system or at the treatment plant?
I'm talking about in the collection system.
Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize.
Sorry about that. I didn't make it clear.
So out in the collection system, other than the 3 or 4 commercial customers who we routinely sample on a monthly basis, there hasn't been much other samples done at this point for any zinc or other metals. And that's where, as I talked about earlier, I'm going to work with Vinny to create a list of, I guess, not so much larger users, but users who may have uses that could contribute to this higher zinc, the higher zinc concentrations. And then also, like you mentioned, maybe try and divide the town up into 3 or 4 quadrants and strategically sample manholes throughout the system to identify if there's stronger concentrations in various areas of town.
Yeah, I would anticipate that you'd even need to go more of a sub-level than that, probably to 30 or 40 different points, just so that you can really narrow it down. I'd like to put that as a motion on the table that be done.
We have a motion. Looking for a second.
Second.
All right.
We have a motion and a second.
So, Mr. Chair, just so the motion, Mr. Donahue, would just be to expand sampling out in the collection system to say 30 to 40 strategic locations to try and identify or narrow down the source of where the higher concentrations of zinc might be coming from?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And again, that's John Oatley, when you talked about the cost of $7 per sample, was that per each metal? So if we were to do zinc and copper, it would be $14?
Yes, it's $7 per metal.
All right. John and Zach, what are your thoughts on doing this type of sampling throughout the system?
It could definitely be done. We could even choose pump stations as some of the main locations, because that will tell us, we'll know what's feeding those pump stations.
Right.
Would you use the pump stations as a starting point, and then if you didn't have the success, broaden your search from there?
Yeah, we could definitely do it in phases. That way we're not sampling in parts of the town that show little to no concentrations.
So, Mr. Chair, I believe we have, Zach, do we have 11 or 12 pump stations? Ballpark. Yes. So I guess I'd recommend that we do 3 samples at each pump station over, say, a a week and a half period. So we do it every 3 days and try and get average data that we might be seeing from each pump station, then identify the quadrants of tile that are fed by that pump station, review the data from those 3 samples, and then look at what we get for data and decide how to narrow it down and go further from there. If that seems to make sense to everybody.
Makes a
That
lot
way,
of
that way
sense.
there, it's not just a one-time sample where it can be hit or miss. We'll at least get maybe some consistent data for at least those 10 or 11 pump stations.
Yeah, and the wet wells will be, the wet wells at the pump stations will give us kind of a better idea of what's going in from that section of town versus popping a manhole and just catching, you know, whatever is passing at the moment.
So motion to amend my motion to Peter's concept.
Have a second to the amendment?
I'll second.
So I guess, Mr. Chair, just to kind of to discuss cost, because this will be done during the day, I don't believe that Veolia will charge us any additional labor to pick up these samples. So you're only looking at a true pass-through cost of $7 per sample if you decide to stick with just zinc. If you want to add some other metals on there, while we're doing this exercise to get more data and more information of what's in the collection system, which could be a good idea because copper is also an issue at certain times of the year. So I would kind of ask that we do copper and zinc at a minimum, and then take that data from this first round of sampling. So if we're doing 30 samples, you're looking at, what's that, $520 to do this first round of data gathering, if I'm not
And
mistaken.
Pete, just to add to that, for the cost of metals, it's $12, I believe, for one metal from a sample. But if it's more than one metal, it's $7 per metal. So really, to go from doing zinc only to zinc and copper is only adding a cost of $2.
Can I ask the concept of adding aluminum, even though it might not be there, just so we see where it's at in the system, just in
I think
case?
that's a great idea.
Yeah, we can certainly include aluminum. However, you know, because we've never added aluminum historically, we do have a good idea both on the influent to the plant as well as the effluent, what the base aluminum is.
Okay,
that's-
well, I'm just
if that's
considering
beneficial to
the aspect of now that we're looking at using aluminum alkaloid to bring down the zinc, that it will give you also where the aluminum's coming from, and if there's any problems there. I just figured it's short money for getting a big picture.
Sure, I don't mean to say it isn't. I just wanted to make everyone aware that we don't currently add aluminum, so we do have some baseline. But yeah,
Okay.
I mean, you grab one sample and they actually run, when they put it through the machine, it scans every metal, and you just pay for the results. So
There you go.
So I guess I throw it back to John and Zach and say, what metals should we be? What metals would you like to see data for?
I mean, I
well,
definitely feel like zinc and copper are the big things to focus on. You know, we could always, if we're doing multiple sets of sampling, we could always do, you know, zinc and copper in all of them, and then do, you know, for one or two sets of them, do zinc and copper and aluminum. Or we could just do all three.
So I think you're looking. So if we were to do two, I think probably an average estimated cost would be around $600 for 3 rounds of sampling at the 10 or 11 pump stations.
Yeah,
If you were to increase to 3, that would probably increase to what, $900?
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense to do the across the board sampling, as Zach pointed out, at least on one of the samples, and then just go to the copper and zinc on the additional 2 of the 3 that you mentioned.
I think that's a smart approach as well. I'd be in favor of that.
Sounds good.
Do we want to formalize that into a motion, put it forward for a vote?
I think Phil made that as a motion, and we have enough information from the discussion on how to move forward with the motion. So if you just want to call for a vote, we should be good unless there's more discussion.
Hearing no more discussion, I'll call for a vote.
Cantwell, aye.
Aye. From Redlock.
Gagner, aye.
Donahue, aye.
Jennings, aye.
All right, thank you. So again, I think we can't go wrong. The more data we can get from the collection system, the more information we can have to kind of make more informed decisions rather than just trying to guess at what's happening. And again,
Sorry, Peter, I didn't mean to step over you.
That's okay.
I also think that you have the aspect of a fallback in case the state does give some difficulty with the current plan, that you at least can show them that you're making some other remedial approaches.
Yep.
All right, so if there's no more discussion on that, the second item under Veolia was replacement pumps for the EQ tanks. Over the past few years, we've purchased a couple of replacement pumps for the EQ tanks 2 and 3. Both EQ tanks 2 and 3 have 2 chambers each, so there's 4 pumps for the combined tanks. We were doing Vinny was doing some work on EQ tank 2 and found both pumps were in need of replacement. Luckily, we had one new one in stock and one rebuilt one that he used to replace them. But we also found out in the meantime that Veolia has negotiated new purchasing pricing to replace those pumps. And I was supposed to attach it with the memo, but for some reason I don't see it there, so I must have missed that part. I was focused on the zinc stuff. But I believe, again, Vinny's on there. Vinny, can you just reference the previous price and the new price per pump and kind of what you'd want us to get?
I actually don't have it in front of me.
Okay.
Look it up and get right back to you.
So for round numbers, the EQ pumps, they were around $4,500.
Correct.
And with their purchasing price, that amount has come down to right around $2,500 per pump. So we're asking you if you would allow us to purchase 2 of those replacement pumps for, again, approximately $5,000. I'm going to try and look it up as well in my email. So excuse me if I look like I'm not paying attention.
I have it in front of me. The new price is $2,650 per pump.
Great. And the previous price?
That I don't have in front of me.
All right. Fair enough.
And just for a reference, Pete, last year, towards the end of last year, we had gotten quotes to replace the pumps without Veolia's pricing, and that was around $12,000 for the same pump. It was $12,600 for a new replacement pump without the Veolia pricing. And even that was it was $8,100 to rebuild the pump that we had there, and we were pretty excited about getting $4,000 for the pump pricing last year, and it's come down even further.
So if we get the 2 new pumps for the 5,300, what other costs are associated with getting them installed?
It's minimal. We can install the pump. We just have to have an electrician wire it for us. So that's quick work for them.
And currently, we have no spare.
There's no spares right now.
We just installed the spare, right? Right
How
there,
long does
right
it take to get these pumps in?
To change out the pumps physically is
No,
probably
physically get them to the plant.
what was that?
What's the
Oh,
delivery time?
Oh, the
Yes.
lead time?
Yes.
Not quite sure.
should be on that quote, Vin.
Yeah, I'm looking at the quote now. It says 8 weeks. So if we ordered them today, it would be 2 months. So sorry.
Now, keep in mind, just so the commission knows, there are 4 pumps total, right? Or two pumps to each tank. One is a lead and one is a lag. So there's sort of a spare in place all the time. This would be a spare on the ship, right?
It's not one for each chamber, John?
No, it's a joint chamber on each tank.
Say that again, but I could be mistaken.
It's a joint chamber on each tank. So each tank has 2 pumps in one chamber.
Yeah, each EQ tank is split into 2 chambers, and then they feed to a single like pump chamber that has 2 pumps located in it.
Okay.
And on top of that, we also have pumps located in the EQ tank number 1 that we use during high flows. So if we, in that 8-week period, if we run into higher flows, we have 2 other additional pumps to turn on to help.
Are we taking these 2 pumps and putting them on the shelf, or are we putting them into use right away?
Vinny, I believe we were planning on putting one in or both in.
I'm gonna pull the pumps in chamber tank 3 at some point soon and see how worn out they are, but I think they're pretty well worn out, so we might need to put them in service.
So if you put both of them in service, then we would not have a spare again.
Right.
Right. Maybe we should order 3 of them.
Well, I think there's just a little history on this. Is there an issue with the warranty and when you order the pump and when you actually purchase it? So if you have it sitting on the shelf, and let's just say it sits on the shelf for 2 years, well, now your warranty is gone.
Right.
We've got the other pump discussion on buying one, having it sit there as a spare. Would an approach be, Vinny, just the pump that's potentially worn, just let it fail? Is there a problem in doing that and then replacing it when it fails?
What's happening with these pumps is the impellers are wearing right off of them, so they are working, they're just not moving the water like they should.
Okay.
So we're wasting a lot of electricity to do a job that shouldn't cost what it's costing.
Yeah, and if we experience really high flows, a pump that we're just waiting to fail that's not really doing much is not going to help us that much when we need to pump this. And just to explain to the new members, these pumps are responsible for pushing all the flow through the treatment plant. If these pumps don't work, the flow will stop through the plant and it will just basically overflow the tanks out to the Katy Brook. So it's definitely crucial equipment.
So there's a total of eight pumps?
Have any idea what the warranty period is on these pumps?
I can bring it up in my email. It might take a minute.
That's fine.
In total, there are 6 pumps. 4 of them are located in the lower EQ tanks 2, 3, and those are the larger pumps, the pumps that we're discussing now. And then there's 2 smaller pumps located in EQ tank 1, which are only turned on during higher flows when we need the additional pumping power.
So are you seeing problems with only 2 of these, or you mentioned there are 4 main ones?
Vinny, you wanna?
Right now, we're not having problems keeping up, but the flows through the plant are really low. So it looks like EQ tank 2 is the one we just put the new pump and the rebuilt pump in. That's doing most of the work. And EQ tank 3 just kind of looks like it's working because the pump's on. There's no real way to measure what's coming out of that one tank.
Mr. Chair, I'd ask that we consider, or at least ordering 2 tanks, 2 pumps now to replace the 2 pumps in EQ tank 3. When we remove those pumps from EQ tank 3, we can kind of look at them, see what kind of condition they're in, maybe get some prices to rebuild the impellers if that's where the problem is. And then you can make a decision if you want to have 1 or 2 of those rebuilt, or if you want to add or order another new one for a spare.
Well,
That way
We could also reach out to Flight.
Purchase 2 new pumps then.
You're kind of broken up there, Mr. Chair.
I'd like to entertain a motion to purchase 2 new pumps. Anyone like to make the motion?
Second the motion.
No, I'll make a motion. I'll make a motion that we approve $5,300 to purchase 2 new EQ pumps.
I'll second it.
Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
So we have a motion and a second for the 2 new pumps. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Call for a vote.
Cantwell, aye.
Donahue, aye.
Aye.
Gagner, aye.
Jennings, aye.
Great. Thank you for that. And again, as we get those pumps in and get them in place, we'll follow up with what type of condition the current pumps are in and what needs to be done, if those can be kept and used for backups, or if we need to go a different route.
Excellent.
Great. Are there any other questions for Veolia while they're kind of still here in front and center? All right.
Peter, this is John Oatley. The only thing we'll also do is we'll talk to Flight and see if there is an extended warranty or whether or not we can have the warranty begin upon installation. So we'll talk with them directly.
Great.
Yeah, I actually brought up an email that was communication between myself and them. It's a 5-year prorated warranty. The warranty usually starts when the pump's received, unless you have a Flight certified technician conduct a startup within the first year of having it. So we might want to look into having, now that we just put that new pump in, we might want to have a Flight technician come out and just certify the install, so that way the warranty starts when we started using it. It's probably only 6 months that it gains us, so I guess it depends on the value of what it costs to have a Flight technician out.
Right.
Well, if you can find out that information for us for our next meeting, as well as that applies to the 2 new pumps.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Thank you, gentlemen.
All right.
Okay. Good night, everyone.
Hearing no more questions, I think we're moving on to Treehouse.
Yes, Mr. Chair, Garrett O'Malley from Treehouse Brewery will be here to give you some information regarding the construction that's taken place on site, and also the status of the sewer pretreatment system that's been installed and is almost operational.
Excellent.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Boria. My name is Garrett O'Malley. I'm the Director of Maintenance at Treehouse Brewing Company. We're located at 129 Sturbridge Road, Route 20, across the street from a couple other businesses in town here, over towards the Sturbridge border. For those of you who I've never met or had the pleasure of being in front of, thank you very much for having me tonight. As Mr. Boria said, my intentions tonight are to give you a brief update on where we stand with our pre-treatment plant that we've been building over the past few months, and let you know where we stand with the commissioning of that, and give an update on where we are with construction and the movement of our company. We are a relatively young, very fast-growing, very large-scale brewery here in Massachusetts, comparable to other breweries that are at the large scale. This brings many challenges, engineering-wise and construction-wise, which I'm sure you're all familiar with. But tonight, I'll get right into our pre-treatment system. For those of you that I haven't spoken to before, I'll keep it brief, but give you the key details of the system. Treehouse has been working with Cambrian Innovations, also a Massachusetts-based company. Their headquarters are in Watertown, outside of Boston, and they design and implement wastewater, mostly anaerobic, but also aerobic wastewater treatment plants, and specifically in the beverage industry. They have clients that are other breweries throughout the country and wineries throughout the country, and are slowly getting more into the food processing industries as well with their anaerobic digestion. Treehouse decided to go with them and partner with them last year for a number of reasons, but most importantly because of their dedication to brewery wastewater. Brewery wastewater in itself is quite unique and has a number of critical elements to it that require a special type and a specific type of treatment to achieve the best goal. So that said, our system is designed to handle the processed wastewater from the brewery. This system that we're talking about right now is a pilot, and it will handle roughly 5,000 gallons of wastewater a day, which is just under our daily average of processed waste in the brewery. Our memorandum of agreement with the commission here does allow up to 7,500 gallons a day, but that's also including our sanitary waste stream that is not considered when we're talking about this treatment plant. This treatment plant is solely to treat and lower the constituents in our brewery wastewater just from our process. This will, as of right now, we are beyond the commissioning phase. We actually technically are underway with inoculation, which is the slow seeding process of the anaerobic digester, where we slowly introduce wastewater and allow the colony of bacteria to grow. This process will take us to the end of the week. By Friday, we should have a completely successful inoculation in this plant, at which time starting Monday, we will do a progressive ramp up where we slowly trickle our wastewater from the brewery instead of to the sewer outfall that we've typically been doing, feeding the wastewater treatment plant over the next month and a half, and slowly progressively loading that digester. This is important to the plant for a number of reasons, and the operators from Veolia. We have very good communication with Zach and his team over there at the plant. And again, Mr. Boria does a good job in between us in facilitating that communication. And this will be very important over the next month because we will now have a period of time where our waste flow is a combination of untreated and treated waste coming to the plant until that ramp up period is done in roughly 5 to 8 weeks from now. And that will be close to 100% of treated processed waste coming out of our anaerobic digester. While I understand that was probably a lot to throw at you all at once, essentially where we're going right now is that within 1 month, I say almost 100% of our brewery waste flow. The flow capacity of the system, of this pilot system, was designed to be the average of our daily flow. There will be times where we do have to open back to the sewer outfall and provide untreated waste to the sewer plant, but that will be measured, sampled, and accounted for on a separate basis, and will eventually, like as I said before, be reduced to almost nothing within the matter of a month. The wastewater that will go through the pretreatment plant, the processed wastewater from our brewery that will go through the pretreatment plant, we are targeting roughly 80% removal rate with these anaerobic digesters to bring BOD and total suspended solids down to closer to household levels. As we've been monitoring and sampling our waste, much like Zach from Veolia was describing before with composite samplers, we've been doing similar protocol over the past year and a half to sample our wastewater and really understand the constituents in there, so we could design the system properly and treat it to that rate. That said, this is I've come to a number of meetings over the past year or so, and at this point, we are on the doorstep, and Treehouse is very excited. Myself, very much so personally excited to get this process up and running and add another layer of efficiency to the way that we do business and the way that we operate. We feel that there will be a bit of a learning curve for us. We're very lucky to have a very strong partnership with Cambrian Innovation, and they will be operating the plant with their own licensed operators through the pilot phase, which is slated to be anywhere between 9 to 12 months. At which time we'll be designing and phasing out the second stage of this wastewater plant, which will be a full build out for higher flows, higher loads, and an even more an increased level of removal rate for BOD and TSS. Amongst various others, I use those terms most generally because they're the two constituents that are of most concern to a brewery and of most concern to the plant in town. They are the elevated rates that we're trying to remove. I don't believe I have anything else left on the as far as pretreatment goes, other than the fact that come this week, Friday of this week, the plant will start experiencing lower loads from our process waste immediately because we have to fill the system. The system holds roughly 20,000 gallons, and given our roughly 5,000 gallons a day, I project between now and next week this time, there will be a drop of 4 days of process waste, which is a significant drop for us. I don't really know where that would put Zach's plant, your plant at that rate, but there will be a reduced rate of effluent from Treehouse's process waste over the next week as we load the system. And with all that said, I'll stop and take questions. Peter, if you have anything that you wanted to add about this, or any questions you want me to answer about this, I can do that.
I think that pretty much gets us up to speed on where you are with the pretreatment system. And then I guess if there's no questions from the commission, maybe just kind of give us a quick overview of what's taking place for construction up there and kind of maybe how things have changed over the last 3 months.
Absolutely. Does that suffice for everyone else on the board here? Does anyone have any questions about the pretreatment system? I'm not a wastewater engineer by trade, but I've learned a lot about it. So if I can't answer your question, I can get the right answer. But if anyone has any questions, I can answer those.
Well, just a question directly to Peter would be, and yourself, Garrett. We had a timeline in mind and an agreement on where we'd be. Now, with construction, there's delays with the current situation of what's going on. Have you experienced many delays in all of this with the pandemic? And
Yeah, I can jump in, Peter, on that one as well. We certainly did. Luckily, I'd say it wasn't as close to Treehouse as it was for Cambrian Innovations. They did have a number of personnel losses and challenges during the pandemic, and had to make some difficult business decisions, which did slow down our process. We probably would have been having this conversation 3 months ago if it wasn't for the pandemic. But we had to pump the brakes when all the unknowns became clear. That said, our timeline, and the last time I came in front of you was to extend our MOA by 6 months, and most specifically just our agreement when it comes to surcharges. That was to allow us to get to this point, and with us, like as I said, with inoculation underway and commissioning complete, we are comfortable moving forward with our MOA at this time, because we feel that over the next few weeks we will start reducing the strength of the effluent from our building, and that will in turn reduce our surcharges in general, and the amount of power that's being used at the plant. So as far as the timeline goes, yes, we did, Mr. Jennings, we did have a lot of holdups, and there were many road bumps along the way, but we're in a good spot now, and we're confident that this is going to be the end of the build out and commissioning phase.
so you won't be requiring more time in that agreement. You think you're
At this point, we certainly don't need to extend any agreements or ask for anything additional from the commission. We're in good shape.
Well, that's great news as far as I'm concerned. And in these difficult times, it's definitely a compliment to your business that you've continued with the agreement and you'll live up to it.
Thank you very much. If there's no other questions, I'll move into. I have a brief recap of. It really goes back more than just 3 months. I'll start back in late last fall. We have had a number of projects that we moved through relatively quickly, basically as a result of necessity for our business, and able to grow the way that we need to keep up with our customer base. But again, a lot of this we've shared in other meetings, but it's always nice to kind of get the whole ball of wax together. So I prepared a small little write-up, and it kind of goes through a lot. I know some of you are more familiar than others, so if there are any questions, I'll break between each project, and if anybody has any questions, I can answer those. Last fall was our first major expansion. We put into place our first major expansion at the brewery, where we put on roughly 25,000 square feet building addition to our brewery and tap room. And this space was purely for retail, tap room, and administrative use, office space. This was a result of our extremely high demand of customers coming to the property and not being able to house them inside, especially in the winter months. It was challenging to deal with the elements. So this move was to give us the ability to operate in a more suitable manner with our customers and our guests than the way we could do it before. This was proposed to the town as an addition of purely just to spread out our use of space. It did add an additional guest bathroom set, men, women, family bathroom. But essentially wasn't to increase our production, increase our flow rate by any means. It was just to spread out the use of space that we currently had. As I said, we put that into use in October, and up until the pandemic, we were using it regularly every single day of the week. Our sanitary flows and loads didn't change by much of a measurable amount, other than the fact that maybe we got more customers, which we've grown accustomed to. But again, we did not increase our flow with that project, and we didn't plan to. And essentially, that has been a big success for us. Similar to that was directly after we finished that project, we were underway with the construction of a 75,000 square foot warehouse for cold and dry storage, directly connected to the brewery. This is now technically part of our property as well at 129 Sturbridge Road and can be accessed from there. But the property abuts Cape and Hill Road as well. This warehouse, much like the expansion of the retail space, was not an expansion of the process, but in the production of beer or our product, but an expansion to be able to spread out our goods and maintain an inventory that we needed to of dry material, ingredient, dry goods, and inventory. At this rate, the warehouse has been, we had occupancy at the end of at the end of January. And since that time, based on our meter readings on our discharge pumps from that building, it's somewhere between 20 and 30 gallons a day from that building. So it's a very, very low usage of water. And again, the majority of our day-to-day business and people coming to our property is being done in the main building. The warehouse is an accessory that doesn't have much of a utility requirement as far as the water and sewer are concerned. Moving into the third project and what we have going on right now and currently underway and an active permit for is we had a small mezzanine expansion inside of our building. We added about 3,200 square feet of mezzanine space in which were designed primarily for an additional walk-in cooler to hold weekly inventory. And also included in the mezzanine project was a catering prep kitchen and a wash pit, as we are coining it now. This is it was a unique experience in going through this with our engineers and designers, because we certainly weren't designing a commercial kitchen by any means, and we weren't or opening a restaurant, if you will, or anything like that. This was again a move to spread out our workflow and allow for more of a tactical approach to the way that we do business on a very busy days. So again, if anyone hasn't been privy to these plans, I can rebroadcast, but I think that Peter can share these plans with you of this catering prep room. But the design of it and what it's intended for is primarily to be a place where Treehouse employees can wash glassware on very busy days where we have a lot of customers. And again, this is just a process that is moving from one location of our building to another and will not increase the overall daily effluent from our building by any amount. We're simply relocating the process to a different part of our building. On any given busy weekend day, we can be washing thousands of glasses, and that right now is all done behind our bars, which if you're dealing with thousands of glasses, that means that there's a lot of people working behind those bars. So the main intention was to move that process behind to a different area where the bartender will be tripping over that work. And secondly, provide a place for independent outside catering companies to come in and have a space to prepare already cooked food or cold food, and have a space to do that wasn't in our offices. We learned that we'd tried that before, where we brought in outside caterers and there just wasn't enough space for them to operate the way that they needed to and efficiently. So again, that's the role of the space. It is primarily a wash pit and a prep pit. There won't be any raw preparation or cooking of food. There's no grease fryers or ovens or anything like that. So again, kind of a unique project, probably unique to the town, and just wanted to share our approach and what Treehouse is aiming to do in this space and how it will affect our effluent. I'll break right there before I go any further. There are a couple other things I wanted to touch on, but if there's any questions about those few projects that anyone may have, I can recap the time. Okay. So with all that said, and with the pending inoculation and ramp up of our wastewater plant, this is obviously this was put in place for a reason. Treehouse is, like I said, we are growing extremely fast and very well. We're very healthy, and we want to be able to sustain that and grow within the town of Charlton. So with that said, as the system comes online over the next few months, we do anticipate the growth of our process, which will inevitably lead to a growth in flow, in effluent coming from our building. Again, we understand that we're currently allocated 7,500 gallons per day, and hopefully at the next meeting, maybe not until August, but we are prepared to come forward and request an additional flow rate. We've discussed this on some level before. We haven't officially requested this yet, and not my intentions tonight to do so. But I did want to get it in front of the commission tonight that it is our intentions moving forward, and within the next couple of months, we will be bringing that forward. We believe that it will probably be in the tune of an additional 1,000 to 2,000 gallons of flow per day. And again, this would all be pending the very successful startup and operation of our pretreatment plant.
Garrett, could you just inform the commission of the pretreatment plant that's there is currently in the pilot phase? Yes. And once that proof of concept is tested, the plans to kind of fully build that out and what the treatment capacity will be in the future?
Yes. So the pilot phase is twofold. It's a pilot for Treehouse, it's a pilot for Cambrian Innovation. It's a pilot for Treehouse because we've never treated our wastewater before. Pretty simple, cut and dry one there. We are going to use this to prove that we can reduce the strength of our wastewater, and it is a viable option. Cambrian is referring to it as a pilot phase because they have designed new tanks to do anaerobic digestion in that are on a different scale of what they've done before, on a smaller scale of what they've done before. So our goal here is to prove this concept that it will treat and reduce the efficacy of our wastewater by up to 80%. And from there, the majority of the equipment that is seen on our plant right now would be replaced by either larger or the proper capacity system for that. So I guess a way of saying that under no circumstances is this the final plant that we'll be building, but this is a similar plant to what we will see eventually. When that time comes, there will be a changeover where we will have to either side stream or reduce the amount that we put out to change these components over the time that it takes and go through that construction phase again. But we are already working on that plan with Cambrian and our mechanical contractor, electrical contractor, to make that as smooth a process as possible. But there will be a changeover where we move to a larger scale system and a system with additional treatment capacity to remove even lower than 80%.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome. So I guess in recap of the past almost year now, it goes quick. Again, the reason I wanted to come before you guys tonight was to let you know that our process is growing. We do plan on expanding our process and producing more of our product and growing the business at the same rate we have. And we are on the cusp of turning that corner and requiring or needing to produce have a higher flow allocated to us. That's where we are right now. So again, is the next meet, Peter, is the next meeting a month from now, or is it 2 weeks from now?
Tentatively, it's July 13th.
Again, yeah, we plan on presenting and coming before you guys again with a formal application for a higher flow.
Okay. Thank you for the heads up.
You're welcome.
I guess, are there any questions?
Sorry, Peter, does that range answer any other questions of 1,000 to 2,000 gallons per day? Again, right now we're at 7,500 gallons per day.
I mean, it seems like a reasonable request. I guess we'll just have to discuss it with Veolia. And as long as none of the commissioners have any, I guess, initial thoughts on what that would be. And again, that initial capacity would come at the same price as your initial request for 7,500 gallons per day, which would be $8,200 per 200 gallons per day, correct?
Those are the numbers I remember, but I don't know.
Yeah.
Would you have sampling information from going online with your new system by that point in time for us?
Yes, there's like I said before, with Cambrian's operators, they have their own sampling procedure where they'll be taking samples at multiple times throughout the day. And with their sampling process, we've piggybacked on top of that and had them grab a couple more samples as they treat, so we can compare that to our untreated effluent and have a really good baseline of what we're doing with our process down there. We have a composite sampler in place for our untreated effluent that, under the, in the circumstance or in the event that we do have to discharge directly to the sewer line, that will be measured by a flow meter. It'll be sampled at a composite rate to have a representative sample at whatever time frame it is that we pull the sample each Thursday, and that will be compared to the other sample.
Real quick, I guess, Garrett, can you just talk about who's going to be operating that treatment plant during the pilot study?
Yeah. As of right now, Cambrian Innovations employs, I want to say, 12 licensed wastewater operators, and most of them, unfortunately, are in the California region. They were able to get one of their operators to mobilize and get out here. They showed up last week, and they're here for the long haul. They'll be operating the plant, and they've also Cambrian has contracted directly outside of Treehouse with whitewater contractors. I believe they're pretty well known in Massachusetts, but they have a number of operators that have been on site for support of that as well. But during this period, it will be operated by Cambrian, not by Treehouse. My role specifically within Treehouse will be to oversee that on our behalf and make sure that the product is the way is what we paid for, because we do own it, but it will be operated by Cambrian. Our Treehouse's long-term goal and what the vision was even before I became a member there was to eventually operate it in-house, and that is still our goal long-term. But with the pilot phase in place, that is according to our plans made years ago. This is the time where we revisit that and start building out our team to operate and maintain that plan.
When do we get to see it?
You guys can, well, unfortunately now with the pandemic, it's made it more difficult. We are more or less open if you want to come up and visit the plant. We have protocol in place that we have to follow. There would be a number of people that I could show at a time. But if a site visit is requested, we can certainly accommodate that. And I think that Mr. Boyer and I can accommodate that for all of you, including I'm not sure if the Veolia folks are still here, but if Zach and his team want to come out too, we'd love to show you around and let you see and put a face to a name, if you will, with this plant, because it's not, but when we first started designing, I understand how it can kind of sound like a magic box or look like a magic box in one's head, but there are a number of components, tanks, buildings, structures, containers that make this up. And if anyone's interested to get a better understanding or a better look at it, you're more than welcome to come up to 129 Sturbridge Road.
Well, just for sake of discussion, I think if any member would like to go up there and speak with Garrett, maybe go on a tour themselves, that would be great. That would probably save a lot of posting and hassle with, open meeting law, like that.
Sure.
Yeah, if anyone's interested, just reach out. Either give me a call tomorrow or send me an email. We can definitely coordinate with Garrett, and depending who wants to go see it, we'll set up times and get you over there to kind of get a walkthrough and get an explanation of how it works and what they're doing.
Yeah, and there also, we do have a number of very high level and experienced technicians and operators from Cambrian right now at the plant. The operators will stay, but right now there's a wealth of wastewater information down there. There's a team of people that have done this a lot and have done this for a long time. So I'm learning a lot every single day, talking to these folks and learning from them. So again, this is a great period for anyone to see this.
Well, I thank you for your update and all the information. And I guess we're going to be seeing you at our next.
You're very welcome. Thank you. And we will generally, Peter, I believe that I should present or present any applications through to you before the meeting, and then.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep,
all right.
definitely.
And I'll be in contact with you about that. If anybody has any other questions, I can stay. I believe you have more items on your agenda, but I'm here if anybody needs me.
Thank you, Garrett.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right. Hearing no other questions on Treehouse, how about moving forward, new business? We have Stevens Road Pump Station.
Yeah, so I've received quotes to perform the drainage and fence work at the Stevens Park Road Pump Station. Again, we hired DC Engineering to create a solution and come up with a drainage plan to stop the groundwater from, it's not really undermining, but it is causing frost heaves and other problems with the fence and the electrical cabinet in particular of that pump station. So I separated it out to have the drainage work completed per plan with the electrical cabinet removed and reset on the new cement pad, and then also a quote to have the fence work done. I spoke with the town administrator, who's also the chief procurement officer, regarding this work. He said the process I followed was correct. So I have two quotes for the drainage work per the plan. The first one, the low price was from RSI Construction LLC for $11,500. We received a second quote from Gothier Excavating for $13,700. And unfortunately, Slim's and Berthium Sewer was a no reply. I received three quotes for the fence work. And again, while trying to get these quotes, I tried to keep it with companies that were within our town or close to our town. So Charlton Fence gave us a quote for the fence work of $5,950. Steadfast Fence was $7,900. And Priority Fence was $8,013.32. So I'd ask that you approve the following quotes from RSI Construction for $11,500 and from Charlton Fence for $5,950. Approve those quotes for the work, and then we do have enough funds left in our FY20 budget. So even though we might not be able to get the work done by June 30th, Sue and I can work with the finance director to encumber these funds so that we can use them to pay for this work if they're done, when it gets done in July or August. And that way there won't affect our FY21 budget.
Do we have a motion for those quotes, to accept those quotes?
I'll make a motion that we accept the drainage and fence quotes from RSI Construction LLC for $11,500 and Charlton Fence for $5,950 for the work performed at the Stevens Park Road Pump Station.
I'll second that
Second the motion.
motion.
Any discussion? Hearing no discussion, call for a roll call vote.
Cantwell, aye.
Aye.
Donahue, aye.
Gagner, aye.
Jennings, aye.
Great. I'll get to work at that and try and get that work done there as soon as possible.
Thank you. Next, we have transfer of funds with fiscal year 20 water and sewer budgets.
Yes, with Steve retiring on June 30th, he is eligible for certain payouts under the personnel bylaw, specifically the buyout of 45 days of unused sick time and any unused vacation time in the current year. And speaking with Lynn Dyer, our HR director, she's informed me that the total payout liability for Steve is $12,220.60. Again, because we were unaware that Steve was going to retire when we prepared the FY20 budgets, we did not add these funds to our salary line item. Also in FY20, we split all department salaries evenly between the water and sewer budgets. And we do not have adequate money in the respective, we do have adequate monies in our respective maintenance line items for water and sewer budgets. And we can transfer that into Steve's salary line item to cover these costs. I don't believe any action is required from the board, as I can sign off on this as the department head. I just wanted to present it to you so you had it for your information. So if it came up at a later date, you weren't surprised that we transferred money into salaries to pay something for some individual employee without your knowledge. So pretty much everything is here. Lynn Dyer did the calculations. And again, we have the funds necessary and the water sewer maintenance account and the sewer maintenance account and the water account so that we can transfer that and cover the cost. So if there's no objection or if there are any questions, I'll answer them.
Any discussion? Hearing none. Moving forward. Thank you, Peter.
Great, thank you.
Next, we have the LNG committee board representative.
Yes.
Rob
So
was a representative from the commission.
yes, he was.
He's gone. Anyone on the commission would like to step up and take that role?
Can somebody explain the role a little bit more in depth?
Sure. So with the LNG facility that was initially proposed on Route 20 and is currently proposed on Route 169, I believe it's the Planning Board, the Conservation Commission, the Water Sewer Commission, the Board of Assessors formed the LNG committee so that we could work together and share resources and information and make sure that there was no, not misconception, but no information got misconstrued or was different for each particular board. So the LNG committee was formed. We're meeting quite a bit in the beginning, but since the application was submitted to the state and the energy board, there really hasn't been many meetings at this time. So until we get a determination from the energy board, it's kind of sit and wait. But because we were part of the initial LNG committee and Mr. Lansky was the member, with him no longer here, we should replace him with someone else if you still want to participate in that committee.
Do you have a concept of what day of the week they usually have been meeting on?
I believe it was Wednesday nights, but again, we haven't met, I don't believe, since November.
Yeah.
So.
Well, hearing no volunteers, if we don't have any volunteers, then I'd fill the role.
Is there a motion to appoint Russ to the LNG committee?
Motion to appoint Russ to the LNG committee.
I'll second.
No further discussion. I'll call for a vote.
Cantwell, aye.
Aye.
Donahue, aye.
Gagner, aye.
Jennings abstain.
All right. Thank you, Russ.
All right, moving forward, EQ tank blower upgrade, Green Communities grant.
Yeah, so this is back to those EQ tanks we were talking about with the pumps earlier. Again, we have 3 EQ tanks. And instead of talking about pumps, we're talking about motors and blowers that aerate those pumps as part of the treatment process. As part of the Green Communities grant, we had a company come in and provide us with a proposal to relook at the blowers and motors and how they operate. And currently those blowers and motors operate 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. They just run continuously. It's pretty straightforward. It's a 5-horse electric motor that turns a root style blower, and it just forces air into those EQ tanks, and that's it. The study that was done is because the Green Communities grant has awarded us a grant. If we were to upgrade those to more efficient motors and blowers and run them on VFDs so they can run at different speeds instead of just 0 or 100%, and also run based on what the dissolved oxygen is in those tanks, there's quite a bit of energy savings that we can get. So we've been awarded approximately $94,000 from the Green Communities in grant form to do this upgrade. As we looked at what we were awarded and walked around with some of the companies to do the work, the blowers and motors for EQ Tank 1 are currently on the floor in the Headworks building, which is a very corrosive environment and not very conducive to what they're doing. So we Zach and I kind of asked them to do an add alternate to pour a pad outside of the Headworks building and locate those 2 motors and blowers outside in the cabinet and pipe them into the air pipes from there instead of having them in where they are. So the add alternate, again, is commercial. We've been working with Commercial Electric to provide us with this upgrade. I just got their quote this afternoon, and the quote to do the add alternate was just over $14,000. So I think that's a great price to increase the longevity of these motors and blowers and get them outside where, 1, it's safer to work on them, and 2, it's just a better environment. So sorry I can't share this with you, but again, I just got it about 4:30 this afternoon. The cost for add alternate number 1 was $14,340.54. I think that's very smart money to spend, especially as part of this $94,000 that we're getting from the state to upgrade the entire system. So again, we're fortunate that we still have monies left in our FY20 maintenance line item that we can encumber these as well and use them to perform this work in FY21 and still have FY21 funds moving forward. So I'm gonna I would ask that you approve the add alternate of the $14,430 and change. And Commercial Electric is a preferred vendor from the Green Communities grant, so they're pre-qualified, which means we do not have to go out to bid for them to perform the work. So again, I think
Need a motion to approve this, Peter.
Yes, I do. Please.
Would anyone like to make?
Motion to approve, Peter. That was a very good idea.
Second to that motion? Is there any further discussion on that motion?
No, other than when Peter and you were showing me the conceptual on that, I thought it was a great idea the other day.
Okay.
It made a lot of sense.
Cantwell, aye.
Gagner, aye.
Ridlock, aye.
Donnie, aye.
Jennings, aye.
Great, thank you. We'll move forward with getting that done so we can get that project completed before the grant monies go away.
For this next chapter 61A Brookfield Road, I'll abstain from discussion and ask that Vice Chair take over and discuss this motion.
Yes, so we've received a request to remove approximately 18 acres of land from Chapter 61A on Brookfield Road. As part of this request, the Board of Selectmen has the first right of refusal to purchase the property, and so therefore asked the departments in town to make a recommendation on whether or not needed to exercise their right of first refusal. Right now, Peter, did you say you don't see any necessary use for the property at this time?
No, at this time, no.
So I'd like to make somebody make a motion.
Motion to not acquire the property.
I guess all we do is recommend the motion would be to recommend to the Board of Selectmen that they not purchase the property. As they're
Motion to the Board of Selectmen that they do not purchase the property.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Donnie, aye.
Aye.
Gagner, aye.
Cantwell, aye.
Great, thank you.
Jennings, thank you for taking over for that, Mr. Cantwell. Next, 241 Sturbridge Road, warehouse site plan.
Yes, so as you're aware, there's a 1.4 million square foot warehouse being proposed at 241 Sturbridge Road, over near the Sturbridge Town Line on Route 20. Copies of the preliminary site plan are attached. The initial estimates is that they would use approximately 7,500 gallons per day of capacity. As you can see on the plans provided, they are proposing to extend the 8-inch water line in Route 20 approximately 1,400 feet to their property, and also extend a 3-inch forced sewer line approximately 1 mile to their property. Again, these plans are very preliminary, but I think it's just important that if there's any strong objection to them requesting up to 7,500 gallons per day of capacity at the sewer plant, that we get that out in the open now, as they will be making that request in the future if they move forward and the site plan is approved. Currently at the treatment plant, our average flow is around 200,000 gallons per day. Our daily permit is for 450,000 gallons per day. Because the majority of this use will just be employees and just be sanitary waste, there will be no process waste that they've proposed at this time. I don't see the additional use being a hindrance to the plant at all. Even as far as floor drains, the initial discussion with them is the floor drains will not be tied into the sewer line. They'll be going to a tight tank. So I think 7,500 gallons per day of straight sanitary waste from employee restrooms should not really produce any undue harm or adverse effect to the treatment plant at this time. Or, I guess, take away capacity from current and future residential users.
And just so that we know, this is not a formal request at this time. This is just plans that have been submitted to you as a heads up, Peter.
I think it's a little more. Again, these are formal. These are well done site plans. So I think it's a little further than a heads up. I just want to get ahead of it to make sure that none of you have any dead stops right now at this point to say that no way are we going to consider giving them that much capacity at this time.
Peter, does that sound like a lot of capacity for employees to you, seeing our treehouse has 7,500 gallons a day? I mean, if this place is just employees using bathrooms, seems like a lot low, no?
Well, they're showing, again, it's Title V numbers, so there's a safety capacity built in. Treehouse's was a negotiation not based on Title V. So this is, I'm not sure, I think Title V is based on employees for flow, for daily flow, and they're proposing 500 employees, 350 or 500 employees. That's what's driving that high number. Will we actually see that actual high flow? We should not. We should probably routinely see 3,000 gallons per day, possibly.
Peter, so my understanding is this is a transfer station for offloading and unloading tractor trailers. Is that correct?
I believe, again, they're calling it a warehouse or a distribution center. They have not identified who the tenant or proposed user would be. So initial thoughts are, yes, it would be a transfer facility.
Yeah, based on the
large
number of bays that they're proposing, yep. I was thinking that would be probably the thing. Yep. So then you're going to have a lot of drivers also using the storage system as they're waiting for the offload, onload. So that's probably going to bring it up to a lot more capacity than they're saying at 500 employees.
I'm not sure if those drivers are included in that 500 employee calculation.
They were talking about 1,289, if I remember reading, trips per day, or
I think it was over 2,000 trips per day.
Yeah, I think it was 2,200 was their traffic study number.
Yeah.
2,200.
Yeah, it's a lot.
So it'd certainly bring a lot of people in. Yeah.
So again, until we really get that formal request to ask those questions of what's your true flow going to be, but again, I think at first glance, if there's no objection to possibly allowing them to contribute 7,500 gallons per day, then we can really just continue to let them move forward. They have presented their ENF to the state, and that's under review right now as part of the MEPA process. So once that's done, I believe they're going to be coming back in front of planning board for their site plan approval.
And we do currently have a moratorium for 10,000 gallons per day.
Correct, but even with that moratorium, it gives you the ability to consider it and approve it as a board. It just doesn't give them the open door to just get approval from the planning board and build it and connect without you saying yes.
And just for clarification on that moratorium, what is the expiration on that, Peter?
The expiration is in August of 2020, so that will be on your next agenda for you to consider reinstating it.
Okay. I thought it was July, but
I believe it's August. So
August 3rd. August 3rd.
Yeah.
Okay.
So again, there's no formal action that needs to be taken here. I just wanted to really present it kind of in this formal setting so that if there were concerns, we could voice them and I could move forward with direction from the board to forward those to the applicant.
Peter, they have to put water lines and sewer lines in, correct?
Correct. So the water line's not nearly as far. I think there's only one property between where the water line ends now and where they would have to run the water line to connect. The sewer line is a little bit further. Part of the discussion I had with the sewer line is to make sure that what they do propose to install is adequate to provide laterals to every property that it goes by, so that this won't just be a dedicated one user pressure line running down Route 20. So they were going to work that into their revisions and hopefully submit us that in the future.
Is it possible to ask for them to give us a little bit more of their business plan?
Most definitely. As we move forward and they come in front of you with a formal request, you'll definitely be able to get that information from them. Who is the user? What is their use, and how is it going to affect the treatment plan? And once we get that information, we can provide it to Veolia, get their input, and get their recommendation on how they feel it will affect the operations of the treatment plant as well.
Yeah, because depending what they're transferring, I mean, it could be cost of chemicals. We have no idea what it is, and I'm happy to hear the floor drains are not going to be tied into the system. But I would certainly say they have to have some stipulations there.
Yep, and again, until we have a formal request and some final drawings, then we'll know that information for sure. All right, so if there's no, I guess, comments to kind of log or put in place at this time, we'll just kind of leave it there. And again, if you have any questions moving forward or you hear of anything that concerns you, please let me know and I can follow up and try and get you the information regarding to those concerns.
Very good. Thank you, Peter. Moving forward, MMA, Suffolk University Certificate in Local Government Leadership and Management.
Yeah, so annually, the Mass Municipal Association and Suffolk University offer a certificate program in local government leadership and management. This program is offered exclusively to municipal employees and is taught by Suffolk University faculty. This year, the program will be offered at the Shrewsbury Town Hall and take place over 26 weeks beginning in September of 2020. The classes will be held on Fridays from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. and only 26 people are accepted into the program annually per location. I've attached a list of the courses that will be covered in this certificate program, and the cost of the program is $2,550. Again, so I have applied and I have been accepted into the program. I believe with the courses that are offered, it will be a benefit to me in my current role and possibly future roles. But I think the courses are very interesting and it'll help me do a better job for you guys. So I would ask that you allow me to attend the program during work hours. Friday is a half day in our office, so I wouldn't be missing the full day of work. And two, that we use funds from our training line items in the budgets, on our water and sewer budgets, to pay for the program. We currently have enough funds available in those line items to cover this cost in our FY20 budgets.
So given that you typically work a half a day, Peter, now going to this class, this isn't going to increase your billable hours to the town.
I'm salary, so it's a set rate.
Okay.
So there'd be no, I would not get any type of overtime because this is until 4 o'clock.
Okay.
And I wouldn't do that. I appreciate you even considering allowing me to do this during work time and paying for the program. So I wouldn't even track the additional time after 12 o'clock on Friday.
Peter, what's your number of hours per week, and how many hours would you be on the clock while you're going to the course?
So my average hours per week are right around 40, give or take. Sometimes it's a little over 40 when we have meetings like this. If I can't take some time throughout the rest of the week to use the couple hours of meeting time, but very rarely is it. So I'd say the average is definitely right around 40. So again, so Fridays are half a day. We typically work 7 to 12. So I still, so those 5 hours, I would not be there. But otherwise, I'd still be in the office for the remaining 35 hours, the other 4 days.
How does the board feel about Peter leaving our plan for the morning on Fridays?
I have no problem with that.
Peter, you'll have ability to be contacted in case an emergency came up at the plant.
Definitely. Yes, my phone will be on and I can check emails. I get notifications via email on my phone, so I'll definitely be available. Sue will be in the office. Again, town hall is closed on Fridays, so there's not a lot of communication between us and other town departments on Fridays anyways. So I don't think this would put our office in a deficit or put our functionality or our productivity in jeopardy.
And your long-term plan is to stay with the current position you're in, sir?
My current plan is to stay here, yes, follow some projects through, and then kind of see what might open up in the town in the future.
Can you give me a concept of what type of timeframes you're thinking?
2 to 3 years
2 to 3 years.
in my current position.
I think it's a good investment.
So I
Would
appreciate
anyone
that.
like a motion?
I would like to accept the motion as proposed by Peter Borio.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any further discussion?
And just to clarify, Mr. Chair, that's the ability to attend the class during Friday work hours and also fund the program, fund the training from the training budgets.
So my motion would be to accept that you are paid for the 5 hours while you attend the class and the cost of this course at, I think we said $22.50.
25.
50.
Sorry, $25.50.
I'll call for a vote on that motion.
I think we need a second because I think we needed a clarification.
I second.
Motion and a second. Call for a vote.
Cantwell, aye.
Donahue, aye.
Gagner, aye.
Gridlock, aye.
Jennings, aye.
Thank you all. I appreciate that.
Congratulations, Peter.
Yeah. All right, now we have it followed up nicely by a vacation request. 5 days. 5 days off.
All right. So typical summer vacation, asking to take 5 to 7 days of vacation starting on July 22nd. Because of not really sure where we're going yet, those days might be flexible if that's okay. I'll make sure that, again, I won't leave Sue in any type of dire need while I'm away. And again, I'm always available even when I'm away. So it shouldn't put our office in any type of predicament.
You don't need a formal motion on that, Peter.
I suppose not. It's just usually what I do is if I'm going to use any more than 2 days in a row, I just like to put it in front of the commission for approval. I think that's worked well so far. We haven't really run into any problems with that over the last 2.5 years. So
Sure. And if anyone has any issue with that, I guess now's the time to voice that opinion. Hearing none, thank you for the heads up, Peter.
all
And,
right, great.
if you can move us to old business and water line construction update.
Yes, so the 2 pump stations, new pump stations on the water line, they have been set and we're waiting on final startup procedures before they go online. Getting access to the Overlook pump station has not been easy due to the coronavirus. Margot Weber from the DEP was in town last week and visited both pump stations. So that's a good step in this process. Is the DEP, they're still working remotely and it's not always easy to get them to come out. So because she was able to get her eyes on the pump stations and ask her questions, hopefully when we are able to do the startup procedure and we get Whitewater and McClure Engineering to kind of sign off to Margot that everything's operating properly and everything's in place, we can go ahead and start up and activate those pump stations, especially the Overlook one, and get that going sooner than later. So as far as the rest of the work on the school loop, Albanese Brothers has been continuing to reclaim and pave the roads that were affected by the water line installation last year. and it's going fairly smoothly, and they're kind of making decent progress. Unfortunately, the contractors are jumping in and out a little bit based on who's available to do work, but they should be starting on Muggett Hill Road on Wednesday, I believe, working from Oxford Road up towards the center of town. They have reclaimed and paved the school driveways. They have reclaimed and based in Morton Station Road and Old Muggett. So I believe they're gonna, again, work on Muggett Hill Road at this point, and then probably move over to Old Worcester Road after. Try and get everything reclaimed and based in, and then come back and do the top as they can in larger quantities. So that continues to move forward. As far as the school loop service installations, which is the actually connecting the houses to the water line, Albanese is finalizing their agreement with ExxonMobil to install those service lines to the residences. The Overlook pump station must be active before this can happen, because they're the ones that are going to provide enough flow to make sure that the water does not get stagnant in those lines for that long run around the school loop. But with the Overlook pump station almost being ready, that shouldn't be a problem. Last meeting, we questions about the 1-year grace period for connections. And that 1-year grace period will start when the new water line is officially activated and turned on. And that will not be until the Overlook pump station is active and water is flowing through the entire school loop. Once that grace period starts, Kleinfelder plans on sending another mass mailing to all the residents that abut the new water line to inform them that the 1-year time frame has begun. And we will also make you aware of that and also post it on our website and the town's Facebook page. And last but not least, the Casella waterline extension is pretty much completed, except for the contractor is up there finalizing the final decommissioning of the private wells for the residents who connected to the water line. Jim Philbrook from the Board of Health has been overseeing that decommissioning on behalf of the Board of Health.
Peter, can you just remind us of the importance of that 1-year number?
Sure. So that 1-year grace period is when ExxonMobil will pay to connect those residences that abut the water line, regardless of whether or not they have contamination to the water line. So that's the grace period for an ExxonMobil funded connection.
And then do you know what it's going to cost people if they don't do it within the first year? Is there a certain set amount, or depend how far it has to go?
There's no set amount, because every house is going to be different based on how far it has to be run in the roadway. The only consistency that there would be the $2,000 Southbridge connection fee to even start before you hire a contractor to come in, run the water line, and then also decommission your well.
And how many people do we have signed up now to connect?
I don't have a hard number on that, because Kleinfelder has been working with the residents. I believe last time she might have said 58.
It's a low number?
58.
Yeah, is that a low number?
I think for where we are right now, it's probably right where it should be. I believe there's approximately 200 residents who are eligible to connect if you add up every existing home on that school loop. And I think as part of initial thoughts, they were hoping to get 100 to connect. So I think based on where the construction is and what's going on, and that the service connections aren't happening yet, we're starting to get phone calls in the office, continuing to ask questions about connecting, and people seem to be more acceptable to connect at this point than they have been in the past.
Their needed number 80, correct, Peter?
Yes, but the only reason that number was needed was to help guarantee the flow for water quality issues.
Yep.
And I think, but they were also using a lower number than what the Overlook was using. So I think if you look at the Overlook's actual flow, and kind of, I guess timing of year matters also, but I think 80 to 100 was what they were hoping for their water model to work, for water quality to not be an issue.
And as we've discussed in the past, we'd also like to send out a mailing, if possible, when that 1-year deadline is actually determined, so that there's multiple points of reference to the customers or to the owners of the property to realize this date and know the importance of it.
Okay.
So that nobody can ever come to the commission at a later point in time and say, oh, well, you never sent me notice. It was never on the website. I never received anything in the mail about this. How was I supposed to know?
That's a good point. We can definitely set up a mass mailing to do that.
Wasn't part of the original agreement with Exxon that they would do 4 separate mailings? Could ask them if they're certified.
I'm not sure if they're certified. I will follow up on that. They are going to do more than one. Moira Johnson from Kleinfelder said they're going to do one at 1 year, maybe one at 6 months, and one at 3 months, so that, again, they can kind of do the same thing and show that they have sent out multiple mailings to property owners.
And also, Phil, just from
Sorry.
my own perspective, I feel that, okay, you get something from Kleinfelder or ExxonMobil, maybe you're pissed off at them. You don't even open it. You're not interested in reading anything more from them. You've been receiving stuff from them for years. Now, all of a sudden, you receive something from the town of Charlton. Maybe it doesn't carry more weight, but it's just that additional notice from us saying, hey, you know, we're taking the next step and making sure that we're doing everything we possibly can.
I mean, under such an important thing, I wondered, you know, is it worth the town sending it certified, you know, just to make sure they're actually received it, and then, hey, then they've made their decision.
Yeah, that's a possibility. And I feel strongly in knowing that we've notified these people, and that's an additional step that I would be in favor of myself.
I think
I
that's
think
right.
sending it certified is a great idea.
Okay. So we can plan on doing that as soon as that 1 year grace period begins.
Yep.
I mean, that way there's no discussion. Their signatures on file.
Right.
Yep. Very good.
Excellent.
Okay. Well, if that's it on that, Peter, then do we have any new business unknown at the time of posting?
Not that I'm aware of.
Any members have anything?
Just wanted to thank you all and enjoyed the first meeting with the board.
Well, welcome.
Yeah, welcome.
Both, and thanks for joining us and helping out.
Well, you have Jack to thank for that.
Very good. Well, for our next meeting, what's the calendar look like, Peter?
July 13th, I think works fairly well with the holiday coming up and what we have going on.
Okay. Oh, so July 13th for our next regularly scheduled meeting. And short of that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion. We adjourn.
I'll second it.
A roll call vote.
Yeah, well,
Aye.
Donnie, aye.
Gagner, aye.
Jennings, aye. Thank you, everyone. Have a
Aye,
good
guys.
evening.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great night.
Thank you.
Yeah.